Life in its simplest form might appear ordinary when we look around. We see plants, animals, microorganisms, and assume life is a natural, almost inevitable consequence of matter interacting under the right conditions. Yet Richard Feynman's perspective reminds us that even the emergence of the most basic life forms is an extraordinarily rare event, requiring an almost impossibly precise combination of conditions and components. The foundation of life is built on chemistry, physics, and molecular complexity, all working in a delicate balance over time and space. At the most fundamental level, life requires molecules capable of storing information and self-replicating. On Earth, this role is performed by nucleic acids, primarily DNA and RNA. These molecules are not just random chains of atoms. They are sequences arranged in precise patterns that allow the instructions for building proteins, regulating processes, and transmitting genetic information to be encoded. The DNA molecule is an intricate information system where the order of nucleotides adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine determines the structure and function of proteins. Proteins themselves are chains of amino acids folded into highly specific three-dimensional shapes, each fold and bond crucial to functionality. The odds of these molecules forming spontaneously in the correct sequences are astronomically low. To illustrate the scale of this improbability, consider a simple protein of just 100 amino acids. Each position in the chain can theoretically be occupied by any of 20 standard amino acids. The total number of possible sequences is 20 to the power of 100, which is approximately 1.27 times 10 circumflex 130. To put this into perspective, the observable universe contains only about 10 circumflex 80 atoms. The probability of randomly assembling a single functional protein from free-floating amino acids is incomprehensibly small. Yet life on Earth has managed not only to assemble such molecules, but also to organize them into self-replicating, evolving systems. Beyond individual molecules, life requires a medium that can facilitate chemical interactions without destroying delicate molecular structures. On Earth, this medium is liquid water. Water provides a stable environment for chemical reactions, acts as a solvent for polar molecules, and has properties that allow it to moderate temperature fluctuations. Water molecules form hydrogen bonds that help stabilize complex macromolecules like proteins and nucleic acids. Without a solvent like water, molecular interactions necessary for life would be severely limited, and the emergence of self-replicating systems would be almost impossible. The environment also plays a critical role. On Earth, life arose in conditions that provided both chemical nutrients and energy gradients. Volcanic vents, shallow seas, and mineral-rich surfaces offered the right combination of temperature, pressure, and chemical composition. These conditions allowed small molecules to come together and form larger, more complex structures. Energy sources such as sunlight, chemical gradients, and geothermal heat drove reactions forward and prevented equilibriums from halting molecular activity. Life, in essence, requires a delicate interplay between chemistry and environmental physics. In addition to molecules and environments, time is an indispensable factor. Even in the most ideal conditions, the formation of life is not instantaneous. Simple self-replicating molecules likely required millions of years to appear. Once they emerged, natural selection and chemical stability had to favor their persistence. Early molecules would have faced countless destructive interactions, such as radiation, hydrolysis, or collisions with other reactive compounds. Only through a combination of stability, replication, and environmental protection could these molecules survive long enough to begin evolving toward more complex systems. Fyenman emphasized that the precision required in these processes is staggering. Life does not arise simply from the presence of organic molecules. It arises from molecules arranged in extraordinarily specific ways. Random chance alone, without the guiding influence of selective environments, is insufficient to produce even the simplest forms of life. This means that the conditions for life must not only allow chemical interactions, but must also prevent destructive interference long enough for complexity to emerge. Even the formation of cellular membranes, a hallmark of living systems, is highly non-trivial. Membranes are composed of lipid bilayers that spontaneously form under certain conditions. These membranes encapsulate molecular systems, creating a boundary that allows concentration gradients, protection from harmful chemicals, and a controlled environment for biochemical reactions. Without this separation from the external environment, early molecules could not have maintained the delicate balances required for metabolism and replication. The spontaneous assembly of membranes, while more probable than assembling DNA sequences, still relies on the presence of suitable amphiphilic molecules and appropriate environmental conditions. Moreover, the interaction between molecules is constrained by thermodynamics. Chemical reactions tend to proceed toward equilibrium, a state of minimum free energy. Life, however, is inherently a system far from equilibrium. It requires constant input of energy to maintain organization, to replicate, and to evolve. Without an external energy source, molecular assemblies would quickly degrade into simpler, more stable compounds, erasing any progress toward complexity. The Earth, with its volcanic activity, solar radiation, and chemical gradients, provided the necessary disequilibrium. But this too is a rare confluence in the cosmos. Finally, the emergence of life requires information storage and replication. Simple, self-replicating molecules must encode instructions for their own reproduction, which introduces a feedback loop that allows evolution to act. Without reply, cation molecular assemblies cannot improve over time, cannot adapt, and cannot accumulate complexity. The evolution of such information systems is not guaranteed. It is the result of highly improbable sequences of chemical events, stabilized by the environment and sustained over vast timescales. At every level, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to macromolecules, and from macromolecules to cellular systems, the emergence of life involves precise arrangements that are highly improbable. Richard Feynman's insight was that life is not simply a natural consequence of chemistry. It is an extraordinary convergence of chance, physics, and environmental suitability. The complexity required is immense, and even small deviations in conditions could prevent life from emerging entirely. Building on the molecular and environmental foundations discussed earlier, one of the leading explanations for the origin of life is the set RNA world hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that life began not with DNA or proteins, but with RNA molecules capable of both storing genetic information and catalyzing chemical reactions. RNA is uniquely suited for this role because it can fold into complex three-dimensional shapes, forming catalytic sites known as ribozymes. These ribozymes can facilitate chemical reactions, including the replication of RNA sequences themselves. The idea of an RNA world ad rests as a fundamental problem. Life requires both genetic information to encode traits and functional molecules to perform metabolic activities. DNA can store information efficiently, and proteins can catalyze reactions effectively, but each depends on the other for replication in modern life. RNA, however, can do both, offering a plausible bridge between simple chemistry and complex biology. Yet even RNA is extraordinarily complex. Forming RNA sequences of sufficient length to be self-replicating involves billions of random molecular interactions, and the likelihood of spontaneously forming functional ribozymes in a prebiotic environment is vanishingly small. Laboratory experiments, such as those inspired by Stanley Miller's famous 1953 experiment, provide insights but also highlight the improbability of life's emergence. In these experiments, mixtures of simple gases exposed to energy sources like electric sparks produced amino acids and other organic compounds. However, creating fully functional polymers such as RNA or proteins under plausible prebiotic conditions remains a monumental challenge. Even with laboratory optimization, the spontaneous assembly of long functional molecules is a statistical anomaly. This suggests that early Earth may have required very specific environmental niches, such as mineral surfaces, tidal pools, or hydrothermal vents, that concentrated molecules and stabilized intermediate products long enough for complexity to arise. The role of planetary conditions cannot be overstated. A planet must offer a delicate balance of factors: appropriate temperature ranges, a stable atmosphere, liquid water, energy sources, and a chemical inventory rich in carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Too hot and complex molecules break down, too cold and chemical reactions slow to a crawl. Too much radiation and molecular structures are destroyed. Too little and energy-dependent processes cannot occur. The Goldilocks conditions for life are narrow, suggesting that even among billions of planets, only a few are suitable for life to begin. Furthermore, the timeline for life to arise is constrained by the lifespan of stars. For instance, Earth formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago, and the earliest evidence of life dates back to at least 3.5 billion years ago. This implies that life emerged relatively quickly in geological terms, a fact that might suggest life is not impossible. Yet the rapid emergence also points to a delicate window. If environmental conditions had been slightly less favorable, life might never have arisen. Planets with longer or shorter lifespans, unstable climates, or frequent catastrophic events may never achieve the stability necessary for even simple life. From a probabilistic perspective, the likelihood of life emerging on any given planet is extremely low. Calculations in the field of astrobiology often reference the Drake equation, which attempts to estimate the number of civilizations in our galaxy. While the equation is subject to enormous uncertainty, the factors associated with the emergence of life itself, formation of complex molecules, replication, cellular organization, carry probabilities so low that intelligent life becomes a statistical rarity. Feynman's insight emphasizes this point. Even though the universe is vast, the precise combination of chemistry, physics, and environmental factors needed for life is so improbable that most planets likely remain sterile. Another factor to consider is chemical evolution. Once molecules like RNA and proteins begin interacting, they form complex networks capable of rudimentary metabolism and self-replication. These networks, however, are fragile. A small change in conditions, such as pH, temperature, or molecular concentration, can destabilize the system. Early life had to evolve mechanisms to maintain homeostasis, repair damage, and resist breakdown. The emergence of such systems is not guaranteed. It is contingent on countless molecular interactions occurring correctly over millions of years. Moreover, stochastic events such as asteroid impacts or volcanic eruptions could easily reset prebiotic progress. Even after life began, it was at constant risk of annihilation. Only by surviving repeated catastrophic events could early molecular systems stabilize and gradually increase in complexity. This highlights another layer of improbability. The initial emergence of life is just the first hurdle. Survival and subsequent evolution present additional challenges that further reduce the odds of intelligent life arising. The chemical and physical improbabilities are amplified when considering the sheer informational complexity required. Modern cells contain thousands of proteins, each with high, list-specific sequences and functions, operating in coordinated metabolic networks. While early life would have been simpler, even the first self-replicating RNA molecules had to encode enough information to maintain replication fidelity. Any error in replication could lead to non-functional molecules, halting the process entirely. Achieving error tolerance in such a primitive system is itself a remarkable feat. Finally, from a cosmic perspective, Fyenman reminds us that our existence is a product of extraordinary chance. The universe is vast with billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars and potentially even more planets. Yet even this enormous scale does not guarantee life is common. The precise conditions for molecular complexity, environmental stability, energy flow, and time are so restrictive that life may exist only rarely. Earth is not necessarily a typical planet. It may be an extraordinarily fortunate exception. The probability of life emerging elsewhere, let alone intelligent life, is subject to the same narrow constraints. In conclusion, the first keynote, the incredible complexity required for life to even begin, reveals the extraordinary improbability of life emerging in the universe. From the assembly of molecules to the formation of self-replicating systems, from the delicate environmental balance to the energetic constraints of chemical reactions, E. Very step toward life requires an almost miraculous combination of factors. Feynman's perspective forces us to appreciate not only the wonder of life on Earth, but also the statistical improbability of such an occurrence elsewhere. The universe may be teeming with planets, yet life itself may remain one of the rarest phenomena imaginable, a testament to the delicate interplay of chance, chemistry, and cosmic conditions. When we observe life on Earth, it is easy to assume that intelligence is a natural outcome of evolution. Humans often think that complexity inevitably leads to advanced cognition, reasoning, or civilization. Richard Feynman, however, cautioned us against such assumptions. Evolution is not a guided process. It does not have foresight, goals, or preferences. Instead, evolution is the result of natural selection, acting on random variations, favoring traits that increase survival and reproduction in specific environments. Intelligence is one such trait, but it is far from necessary for survival. Life on Earth provides numerous examples of highly successful species that exhibit minimal intelligence by human standards. Bacteria, for instance, have existed for billions of years, thriving in nearly every environment on the planet, from deep-sea hydrothermal vents to frozen tundras. They are extraordinarily effective at survival, reproduction, and adaptation, yet they do not possess consciousness, reasoning, or self-awareness. Their success illustrates a fundamental principle. Evolutionary success is not measured by intelligence, but by fitness in a given environment. The emergence of intelligence requires both evolutionary pressure and an ecological niche where complex cognition provides a clear advantage. For example, in social species, intelligence can facilitate communication, coordination, and problem solving, offering reproductive or survival benefits. However, in many ecosystems, simple behavioral strategies like instinctive responses, chemical signaling, or rapid reproduction are sufficient. Evolution favors efficiency, not sophistication. If a simpler method achieves the same survival outcomes, natural selection will maintain it, and intelligence may never arise. Moreover, intelligence comes with significant biological costs. Brains are metabolically expensive organs, consuming vast amounts of energy relative to body size. For instance, the human brain constitutes about 2% of body mass, but consumes approximately 20% of the body's energy. This energy investment is only justified if the cognitive abilities provided by a larger brain significantly improve survival and reproduction. In many species, simpler neural structures suffice to navigate environmental challenges, find food, avoid predators, and reproduce successfully. In such cases, natural selection does not favor the evolution of larger brains or complex intelligence. Additionally, intelligence is often linked to long developmental periods. Human children, for example, take more than a decade to reach full cognitive maturity. This extended development is risky in a world full of predators, environmental hazards, and disease. Most species achieve reproductive maturity far faster, allowing them to reproduce and pass on genes before mortality risks intervene. Extended development is only viable in environments where parental care, social structures, or protection mechanisms mitigate these risks. Consequently, intelligence is constrained not only by energy, but also by the environmental context that permits long developmental periods. Even when the potential for intelligence exists, random events and environmental instability can prevent its emergence. Species face countless challenges: climate fluctuations, natural disasters, competition for resources, and sudden extinctions. For example, the asteroid impact that contributed to the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago eliminated dominant species, allowing mammals and eventually humans to evolve. Had circumstances differed slightly, intelligence might have been delayed or prevented entirely. Evolution is contingent, not deterministic, and small differences in environmental history can profoundly influence outcomes. The evolutionary pathways leading to intelligence are also complex and multifaceted. Intelligence does not evolve in isolation. It co-develops with sensory abilities, motor control, social behavior, and environmental awareness. A species must possess the right combination of physical traits, ecological opportunities, and selective pressures to favor cognitive complexity. Even minor limitations in sensory perception, mobility, or reproductive strategy can preclude the evolution of advanced intelligence. The more steps required, the less probable the outcome. Social behavior provides another critical factor in the development of intelligence. Species that live in complex social groups often benefit from higher cognitive abilities, as social interactions require memory, planning, communication, and problem solving. Primates, dolphins, elephants, and certain bird species exhibit advanced social cognition. However, most life forms exist independently or in simple communities where intelligence provides minimal benefit. Without social pressures, the evolution of intelligence is less likely. Evolution shapes traits that directly enhance survival and reproduction. Intelligence is advantageous only in specific ecological and social contexts. The concept of evolutionary dead ends further explains why intelligence is rare. Many species develop unique adaptations that are highly effective for survival but incompatible with cognitive expansion. For instance, insects have highly specialized behaviors, chemical communication systems, and rapid reproductive cycles, allowing them to dominate ecosystems without evolving large brains. Their evolutionary success demonstrates that intelligence is not a necessary requirement for a species to thrive. It is merely one possible strategy among many. Feynman's insight emphasizes the unpredictability of evolution. Even on a planet teeming with simple life, the path to intelligence is uncertain. Random mutations, environmental pressures, and ecological contingencies interact in ways that can either promote or inhibit cognitive development. Evolution is not a ladder with intelligence at the top. It is a branching tree with countless possibilities, most of which do not lead to advanced cognition. Another consideration is that intelligence itself is not a single uniform trait. It encompasses problem solving, abstract reasoning, memory, tool use, communication, and self-awareness. Different species may excel in one domain while remaining limited in others. Even if life evolves certain cognitive abilities, it may never develop the combination required to produce culture, technology, or civilization. The evolution of human-like intelligence is therefore not a guaranteed outcome, but a highly specific. See alignment of traits. Finally, the rarity of intelligence is compounded by its fragility. Species capable of advanced cognition often require stable environments over long periods to reach full potential. Rapid climate change, ecological disruption, or sudden catastrophes can interrupt evolutionary trajectories, preventing the accumulation of complex cognitive abilities. Life may exist in abundance, but intelligence may be fleeting or absent, highlighting the improbability of its emergence even when life thrives. In conclusion, the second keynote, even if simple life emerges, evolving intelligence is not guaranteed, underscores a fundamental truth about evolution. Life is guided by survival and reproduction, not by the emergence of intelligence. The development of advanced cognition is constrained by energy requirements, developmental timing, ecological niches, social complexity, and random events. Intelligence is a rare evolutionary strategy, not an inevitable outcome, and its emergence depends on the precise alignment of biological, environmental, and historical factors. Feynman's perspective reminds us that even planets teeming with life may lack intelligent species, making intelligence one of the most extraordinary and improbable phenomena in the universe. To understand why intelligence is not a guaranteed outcome of life, it is instructive to examine the history of life on Earth. For roughly 3.5 billion years, life consisted primarily of single-celled organisms. During this vast expanse of time, life thrived without any indication of advanced cognition. Complex multicellular organisms did not emerge until around 600 million years ago in the Ediacaran and Cambrian periods. This timeline demonstrates that even when life exists, the evolution of structural complexity and behavioral sophistication is slow and contingent on numerous factors. The emergence of intelligence requires far more than the mere presence of life It demands the right evolutionary pressures sustained over vast timescales. Cognitive evolution is constrained by the interplay between ecological opportunities and physical limitations. For example, intelligence often evolves in species that face unpredictable environments or require sophisticated problem-solving skills. Primates, including humans, evolved intelligence partly because of complex social interactions, manipulation of objects, and adaptive strategies to exploit variable food sources. In contrast, species that inhabit highly stable or predictable environments may have little evolutionary incentive to develop intelligence. A bacterium in a nutrient-rich pond, a fish in a steady aquatic ecosystem, or an insect in a consistent habitat can survive and reproduce effectively without cognition beyond instinct. Even in species with higher cognitive potential, evolutionary bottlenecks can prevent intelligence from fully developing. Evolutionary bottlenecks occur when populations are reduced dramatically by environmental changes, predation, or disease, limiting the diversity of traits available for selection. These bottlenecks can eliminate nascent cognitive adaptations before they mature, creating dead ends in the evolutionary pathway toward intelligence. For example, the extinction of many large-brained mammals during the Pleistocene likely removed lineages that might have evolved higher cognition under different circumstances. Bottlenecks illustrate that intelligence is highly sensitive to historical contingencies, further reducing its probability. Moreover, intelligence is metabolically expensive, and selective pressures often oppose its development. Large brains require more oxygen, glucose, and overall energy. Animals that evolve intelligence must also evolve mechanisms to meet these demands, such as increased caloric intake, cooperative hunting, or social provisioning. Without supportive environmental and social conditions, the energy cost of a large brain outweighs its benefits, and evolution will favor smaller, more efficient neural structures. Consequently, intelligence is feasible only in a narrow range of ecological and evolutionary contexts. The concept of evolutionary trade-offs is also critical. Adaptations that enhance one trait often compromise another. For example, allocating resources to a large brain may reduce reproductive output, physical robustness, or survival under harsh environmental conditions. In many species, evolution favors traits that maximize reproductive success rather than cognitive capacity. Intelligence is rarely the optimal strategy for survival in a world dominated by predation, competition, and environmental variability. This trade-off explains why many species thrive for millions of years without developing high-level cognition. Even when intelligence begins to emerge, it may not progress toward the levels seen in humans. Cognitive evolution depends on incremental improvements, each step providing a measurable advantage. However, the benefits of increased intelligence are not linear. Some cognitive abilities may be advantageous only when combined with other traits, such as dexterous limbs, advanced communication, or social structures. Without this combination, early intelligence may plateau, remaining limited to basic problem solving or memory without ever reaching abstract reasoning, tool use, or culture. Social evolution is another decisive factor in the emergence of intelligence. Species that live in groups often benefit from increased cognitive abilities, as individuals must navigate social hierarchies, cooperation, and competitive. Primates, cetaceans, and certain birds exhibit such social intelligence. However, most species are solitary or exhibit simple social structures where cognition offers minimal advantage. The evolution of intelligence in solitary species is therefore less likely, as environmental and social pressures do not reward advanced cognition. Cultural evolution also amplifies the value of intelligence, but it requires multiple preconditions. For culture to emerge, a species must possess learning abilities, social transmission of knowledge, and a stable environment that allows accumulation of skills across generations. Without these conditions, intelligence alone may not lead to technological or societal complexity. A species may be cognitively advanced, but fail to develop culture, tools, or civilization. Human-level intelligence, therefore, is not only rare biologically, but also contingent on a suite of ecological, social, and historical circumstances. From a probabilistic perspective, the emergence of intelligence can be framed in terms of evolutionary likelihood. Even if life arises on a planet, the probability that it evolves intelligence is extremely low. Studies of Earth's biodiversity suggest that billions of species have existed, but only one human has developed advanced cognitive abilities capable of altering the planet and contemplating the cosmos. This statistical observation indicates that the evolution of intelligence is a rare event, dependent on multiple coinciding factors that align only under exceptional circumstances. Richard Feynman emphasized that intelligence is not an inevitable outcome. It is an extraordinary fluke of evolution. The branching tree of life on Earth contains countless lineages that never approached human-level cognition, despite millions of years of evolution. Fish, insects, amphibians, and countless mammals have thrived for millions of years with highly effective but limited cognitive abilities. Human-level intelligence represents a narrow, improbable peak in the landscape of evolutionary possibilities. Furthermore, external threats such as asteroid impacts, volcanic activity, climate shifts, and disease outbreaks can disrupt the evolution of intelligence at any stage. Even species with nascent cognitive abilities may be wiped out before intelligence matures. Survival through catastrophic events requires adaptability, population resilience, and environmental luck. The intersection of these factors is statistically rare, highlighting why intelligence does not inevitably emerge on inhabited planets. Even in the broader context of the universe, intelligence faces additional constraints. Planets with life-supporting conditions may be numerous, but each faces unique challenges. Varying gravity, atmospheric composition, radiation levels, and resource availability create diverse evolutionary pressures. Only a tiny subset of these environments would simultaneously support life, favor complex multicellularity, and create conditions favorable for cognitive evolution. Therefore, the likelihood of intelligent life evolving elsewhere, even where simple life is abundant, is exceedingly small. Finally, Feynman's insight teaches us humility. Observing life on Earth, we might assume that intelligence is a natural endpoint of evolution, yet the evidence suggests otherwise. Intelligence is not a predetermined goal of life. It is a rare, contingent, and fragile phenomenon. Even in a universe teeming with simple life, the emergence of intelligent beings is unlikely, dependent on a remarkable convergence of evolutionary, environmental, social, and historical factors. In conclusion, the second keynote, even if simple life emerges, evolving intelligence is not guaranteed, demonstrates that intelligence is a rare evolutionary strategy. It is constrained by energy demands, developmental costs, environmental pressures, evolutionary bottlenecks, trade-offs, social context, and historical contingencies. Life may be abundant in the universe, but intelligence requires a highly improbable alignment of circumstances. Feynman's perspective reminds us that human cognition, culture, and technology are extraordinary feats, phenomena unlikely to occur even on planets rich in simple life. The emergence of intelligence is the exception, not the rule. The timeline of life on any planet is one of the most crucial factors in determining whether complex or intelligent life can arise. Life does not emerge instantaneously. It is the result of countless chemical and biological processes unfolding over millions or even billions of years. On Earth, for example, life began relatively quickly after the planet stabilized. Evidence suggests that simple microbial life appeared around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, within a few 100 million years of Earth's formation. However, it took billions of years more for complex multicellular life to evolve and nearly 4 billion years for intelligent life to appear. This delay illustrates how critical timing is, even with the right conditions. Life requires immense spans of stable time to evolve complexity. The lifespan of a planet's host star sets an upper limit on the potential for life. Stars like our Sun have lifespans of roughly 10 billion years, which provides a substantial window for life to develop. However, larger, more massive stars burn through their fuel quickly, sometimes in just a few 100 million years, far too short for complex life to evolve. Conversely, smaller stars, such as red dwarfs, can live for trillions of years, but their environments present unique. Challenges, including intense stellar flares that can strip planetary atmospheres. The intersection of the star's lifespan and the planet's habitability window determines whether life has the opportunity to develop and evolve beyond simple microbial forms. Early life on Earth faced a narrow window of opportunity shaped by environmental stability. Planetary conditions such as temperature, atmospheric composition, and the presence of liquid water must remain within suitable ranges for life to persist. Prolonged instability, whether from frequent asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, or dramatic climate shifts, can halt or reset evolutionary progress. In fact, the early Earth endured a bombardment of asteroids during the Hadean and early Archean eons, and yet microbial life managed to emerge. These events underscore the fragility of early life and the necessity for a sufficiently long period of relative stability to allow complex organisms to evolve. Even after simple life emerges, the pace of evolution depends on selective pressures and ecological opportunities. On Earth, multicellular life remains scarce for billions of years, with most life forms consisting of single-celled organisms. It was only around 600 million years ago, during the late Precambrian and Cambrian periods, that complex organisms diversified rapidly in what is often called the Cambrian explosion. This suggests that environmental conditions, planetary stability, and evolutionary pressures must converge precisely to allow complex life to develop. If conditions change too rapidly, evolution may stall and life may remain at a simple microbial level indefinitely. So if the concept of the temporal bottleneck also applies to intelligence. Even if multicellular life emerges, intelligent life requires additional millions of years to evolve sophisticated brains and social structures. On Earth, humans appeared only in the last few 100,000 years, a minuscule fraction of the planet's lifespan. This demonstrates that intelligence requires both a long period of stable conditions and favorable evolutionary pressures. Any disruption during this period, such as mass extinctions, climate upheavals, or resource scarcity, can prevent intelligence from developing, even if life itself persists. Planetary and cosmic events also influence the timeline of life. Periodic mass extinctions, shifts in atmospheric oxygen levels, and changes in climate have repeatedly shaped evolutionary paths. For instance, the rise of oxygen during the Great Oxidation Event, roughly 2.4 billion years ago, enabled the evolution of aerobic metabolism, which in turn allowed larger, more complex organisms to thrive. Without such environmental shifts occurring at the right time, complex life may never emerge. This highlights the interdependence of planetary processes in biological evolution. Timing is not just a backdrop, but an active determinant of life's trajectory. Stability over geological timescales is especially important for intelligence. Advanced cognition often evolves in species that require extended developmental periods, social learning, and accumulation of knowledge across generations. If environmental conditions fluctuate too rapidly or catastrophically, the evolutionary progress toward intelligence can be erased repeatedly. Even a planet rich in life may never produce intelligent beings if the temporal window is too short or unstable. This explains why intelligence is so rare in the universe. It requires not only the right conditions, but also sufficient uninterrupted time for evolution to proceed. Feynman's insight about timing also emphasizes the relative brevity of intelligent life. On Earth, humans have existed for only a tiny fraction of the planet's history. If life is common in the universe, intelligent species may arise only briefly, making detection extraordinarily difficult. Even planets that successfully produce life may never see intelligence mature if evolutionary or environmental conditions change before the necessary developmental timescale is reached. In conclusion, the timeline of life on a planet is a fundamental constraint on the emergence of complexity and little gents, from the formation of the first self-replicating molecules to the rise of intelligent beings capable of culture and technology. Every stage of evolution requires not just the right conditions, but sufficient time to allow processes to unfold. Stars, planetary stability, environmental shifts, mass extinctions, and selective pressures all shape this temporal window. Life may exist on countless planets, but without long-term stability and an extended evolutionary timeline, the emergence of intelligent life remains highly improbable. The story of Earth illustrates this delicate interplay. Intelligence is not guaranteed, even when life is present, because the universe imposes strict timing constraints that few planets can satisfy. Intelligence, while often celebrated as the pinnacle of evolution, is not free. Every step toward higher cognition imposes enormous costs on the organism, costs that can easily outweigh the survival advantages in many ecological contexts. Richard Feynman emphasized that intelligence is not a given. It is a rare evolutionary strategy, precisely because of the immense trade-offs it requires. Understanding these costs helps explain why intelligence is extraordinarily uncommon, even on planets teeming with life. One of the most immediate and significant costs of intelligence is energy consumption. Brains are metabolically expensive organs. In humans, for example, the brain constitutes about 2% of body mass, but consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy at rest. This energy supports neural activity, maintenance of synaptic connections, and the complex biochemical signaling that underlies thought, memory, and problem solving. For smaller animals or species with limited access to high-calorie food sources, evolving and maintaining such energy-intensive neural tissue is often impossible. Natural selection favors energy efficiency, and in many environments, investing heavily in a large brain would reduce fitness rather than enhance it. Alongside energy demands, intelligence imposes developmental costs. Highly intelligent species require extended growth periods during which individuals are vulnerable to predation, environmental hazards, and resource scarcity. Human children, for example, require over a decade to reach cognitive maturity. This prolonged developmental period necessitates parental care or social structures to protect and feed offspring. Species lacking supportive social environments, cooperative behavior, or abundant resources cannot sustain such long developmental timelines, which severely limits the evolution of intelligence. In essence, intelligence is viable only when a species can survive the lengthy costs of raising complex, cognitively capable individuals. Reproductive trade-offs further constrain. Intelligence, energy and resources allocated to brain development, are energy not allocated to reproduction, physical growth, or other survival mechanisms. Larger brain species tend to have fewer offspring, slower reproductive rates, and longer gestation periods. While this investment can pay off in the long term for species that survive and propagate, it also increases vulnerability to extinction. Populations with slow reproduction cannot recover quickly from environmental disruptions, making intelligent species particularly sensitive to catastrophes, disease, and habitat changes. Evolution, therefore, only favors intelligence in environments where the benefits outweigh these reproductive costs. Beyond metabolic and developmental factors, intelligence carries ecological and survival costs. Sophisticated cognition allows for complex planning, abstract thought, and problem solving, but it also requires an environment where these abilities confer an advantage. In highly stable or predictable ecosystems, intelligence may be unnecessary. Simple instinctual behavior or rapid reproduction can achieve the same survival outcomes with far less energy investment. In such systems, intelligence is an inefficient adaptation, and natural selection does not favor its development. This explains why most species, even those highly successful and long-lived, remain minimally intelligent by human standards. The fragility of intelligence systems adds another layer of cost. Highly developed brains are sensitive to injury, disease, and nutritional deficits. Unlike simple organisms or instinct-driven species, which can survive moderate environmental stress, intelligent species often require highly stable and resource-rich conditions to thrive. Environmental disruption can impair cognitive function, reduce reproductive success, and even threaten survival, making intelligence a risky evolutionary strategy. Social costs also play a critical role. Intelligence often evolves in species with complex social structures, which require cooperation, competition, and communication. Maintaining these social networks demands additional energy, cognitive effort, and behavioral sophistication. Social living can amplify survival advantages, but it also introduces vulnerabilities such as intraspecies conflict, hierarchical disputes, and dependence on group cohesion. These social costs mean that intelligence is advantageous only in specific contexts where cooperation outweighs conflict. Even in the context of tool use and technological capability, intelligence imposes costs. Learning to manipulate objects, construct tools, or understand abstract concepts requires trial and error, time investment, and exposure to risk. Individuals must survive long enough to acquire knowledge, and pass it to the next generation. Species without adequate lifespans, protection, or opportunities for cultural transmission may never translate intelligence into practical survival advantages, rendering the costly investment in neural tissue less effective. Evolutionary history illustrates how costly intelligence can be. Consider Homo sapiens' emergence. Humans evolved larger brains compared to other primates, which required higher caloric intake, cooperative hunting strategies, and social organization. Early humans faced constant threats from predators, environmental changes, and resource scarcity. The fact that human intelligence survived demonstrates a rare combination of favorable factors: abundant energy resources, cooperative social structures, and environmental pressures that rewarded problem solving. Most species do not encounter such a confluence of conditions, which is why intelligence remains exceedingly rare. Feynman's perspective highlights that intelligence is not a universal goal of evolution, but a specialized adaptation that succeeds only under a narrow range of conditions. The enormous metabolic, developmental, reproductive, ecological, and social costs impose severe constraints on which species can evolve intelligence. Even planets rich in life may host species that thrive without ever developing cognition beyond instinctual behavior. In many cases, the simplest and most energy-efficient strategies, rapid reproduction, chemical defenses, or environmental specialization, are favored over intelligence, no matter how advantageous cognition might seem in theory. Finally, intelligence is not inherently stable from an evolutionary standpoint. Environs can change faster than species can adapt. Energy sources may fluctuate, predators may emerge, and climates may shift. Highly intelligent species are particularly vulnerable to such changes because their survival depends on extended development, social learning, and energy-intensive organs. Evolution often favors robustness and resilience over high-cost adaptations, which further explains why intelligence is so rare across the tree of life. In conclusion, intelligence comes with enormous costs that few species can sustain. Energy consumption, developmental requirements, reproductive trade-offs, ecological vulnerability, social demands, and environmental fragility all contribute to making intelligence an extraordinary evolutionary gamble. Richard Feynman's insights remind us that intelligence is not inevitable or universal. It is an exceptional outcome of evolution, achievable only when a narrow combination of conditions allows the benefits to outweigh the immense costs. Life may be abundant in the universe, but intelligence is rare, precisely because it is so costly, and evolution favors strategies that maximize survival and reproduction over cognition. Even if a species evolves intelligence, its survival is far from guaranteed. Richard Feynman emphasized that evolution may create intelligent beings, but the universe imposes additional, often insurmountable challenges beyond the process of natural selection. Intelligence provides advantages such as problem-solving, environmental manipulation, and technological development, yet it also exposes species to new risks, both from themselves and from the universe around them. One major challenge comes from self-destruction. Advanced intelligence allows for the creation of tools, weapons, and technology, but these same capabilities can lead to catastrophic outcomes. Humans, for example, have developed nuclear weapons, industrial systems that alter the climate, and technologies that can rapidly destroy ecosystems. An intelligent species might inadvertently cause its own extinction before it can spread beyond its planet, limiting the likelihood that intelligent life persists long enough to be detected elsewhere in the cosmos. Another challenge is environmental vulnerability. Intelligence cannot shield a species from global catastrophes such as asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, or rapid climate shifts. The geological history of Earth is filled with mass extinctions, including the one that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Even highly intelligent species could face extinction if environmental changes occur faster than they can adapt, or if they underestimate or fail to mitigate these threats. Intelligence offers tools, but it does not make a species immune to the universe's hazards. Resource limitations pose a further challenge. Intelligent life often depends on abundant and accessible resources to maintain its technology, energy needs, and social structures. Planetary resources are finite, and overconsumption can lead to ecological collapse. Civilizations may reach limits of sustainable growth, triggering conflict, starvation, or environmental degradation that threaten survival. Feynman's perspective reminds us that intelligence alone does not create unlimited security. It increases dependency on the planet's capacity to support complex life. In addition, competition with other species can limit the success of intelligent life. Even with advanced cognition, intelligent species are not necessarily the dominant form of life. Other organisms may possess superior adaptation to certain environments, faster reproduction, or resilience against threats. Predatory species, pathogens, or invasive organisms can challenge intelligent life, demonstrating that intelligence does not automatically confer dominance or immunity to ecological pressure. Sci-fi cosmic hazards also present existential risks. Gamma-ray bursts, supernovae, and solar flares can irradiate entire planets, disrupting ecosystems and potentially sterilizing surfaces. Intelligent life is particularly vulnerable because of its concentration in technological infrastructure, urban centers, and dependence on stable environments. Unlike simple microbial life, which can survive extreme conditions or exist underground or underwater, intelligent species often rely on predictable, habitable zones. These vulnerabilities increase the probability of catastrophic failure despite intelligence. Furthermore, intelligence is constrained by time and opportunity. Even if a civilization arises, the window to survive, expand, and explore the universe is limited. Stars evolve, planetary conditions shift, and interstellar travel is extraordinarily difficult. A species may reach intelligence too late in its planet's lifespan or fail to develop technology fast enough to avoid extinction. In this sense, intelligence is fragile and temporally constrained. The emergence of intelligent life is not the same as its long-term persistence. Finally, the combination of internal and external risks creates a multiplicative effect on the survival probability of intelligent species. Unlike single-celled organisms that can survive in isolated niches or in dormant forms, intelligent EIs rely on complex societies, energy infrastructure, and sustained cultural knowledge. Any disruption in these systems, from war, environmental disaster, or cosmic events, can cascade into collapse. This fragility makes the long-term survival of intelligent life exceedingly rare. In conclusion, evolving intelligence does not guarantee a species will persist. Beyond evolutionary hurdles, intelligent life faces enormous challenges, including self-destruction, environmental instability, resource scarcity, ecological competition, cosmic hazards, and temporal constraints. Feynman's insight is clear. Intelligence may be the pinnacle of evolution on a single planet, yet it is vulnerable, fragile, and exceptionally difficult to sustain. Even if life evolves intelligence, the combination of internal and external pressures makes the long-term survival of intelligent species one of the most improbable outcomes in the universe. The rarity of intelligent life is not only about the difficulty of evolving cognition, but also about the extraordinary challenge of maintaining it amidst an unforgiving cosmos. When we look at the night sky, it is easy to assume that the universe must be teeming with intelligent life. After all, there are billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, many of which host planets in the habitable zone. However, Richard Feynman reminds us that the sheer scale of the universe can be misleading. While life may exist, somewhere the distances between stars and galaxies create fundamental barriers to communication, detection, and interaction. The vastness of space alone dramatically reduces the probability that intelligent species will meet, even if they are present. To begin with, consider the staggering distances involved. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is over 4 light-years away, about 25 trillion miles. Even with advanced technology, traveling such distances would take tens of thousands of years with current spacecraft. Now expand this to the scale of our galaxy, the Milky Way, which spans roughly 100,000 light-years. Interstellar travel, communication, and exploration across such distances become enormously challenging. Even if multiple intelligent civilizations exist in the same galaxy, their isolation could prevent meaningful contact, making intelligence effectively invisible on a cosmic scale. Communication is also limited by the speed of light, which imposes a strict barrier on information transfer. Signals sent across interstellar distances take years, decades, or even millennia to reach their destination. A civilization could rise, develop technology, and vanish long before its signals reach another intelligent species. Similarly, humans may detect extraterrestrial messages millions of years after they were sent, or never at all, because civilizations are temporally out of sync. The universe's immense size ensures that even civilizations that exist are unlikely to coincide in space and time. The scale of the universe also masks the rarity of life. While there are trillions of stars and planets, the proportion with the right conditions for life may be extremely small. Planets must exist in the habitable zone, possess stable atmospheres, maintain liquid water, and avoid catastrophic events long enough for life to develop. When these requirements are combined with the difficulties of intelligence evolving, the fraction of planets hosting advanced civilizations shrinks dramatically. The universe may be vast, but life, and especially intelligent life, is spread thin, making detection unlikely. Even within a galaxy, civilizations may be isolated by cosmic distances and stellar hazards. Supernovae, gamma-ray bursts, and strong radiation zones can render large regions uninhabitable. Habitable planets may be scattered randomly, separated by vast voids, and shielded from one another by obstacles such as interstellar dust and gas clouds. These physical barriers reinforce the idea that the universe size does not imply accessibility or interaction between intelligent life forms. The concept of a galactic neighborhood further illustrates this problem. If civilizations are separated by thousands of light years, even rapid communication becomes impractical. A message sent to a neighboring star could take decades or centuries to arrive, and a response would take equally long. For a species with a typical civilization lifespan of a few thousand years, the likelihood of meaningful dialogue with another civilization is extremely low. The immense scale of the universe, therefore, not only separates civilizations spatially, but also temporally. Additionally, the universe's vastness can create the illusion of abundance while concealing scarcity. From Earth, the night sky appears crowded with stars, suggesting that habitable planets and intelligent species are everywhere. Yet this perspective ignores the immense empty spaces between stars, the rarity of planets with favorable conditions, and the statistical improbability of intelligence evolving. The universe may host trillions of planets, but the number that actually supports intelligent life could be minuscule, a fraction so small that the vast scale is deceptive. Finally, Feynman's insight reminds us to approach cosmic probabilities with humility. Our intuition struggles to grasp the scale and complexity of the universe. While intelligent life may exist, the odds of it arising, surviving long enough, and being detectable are extremely low. Vast distances, temporal mismatches, and environmental hazards make intelligent civilizations rare and isolated. The universe size does not guarantee contact. It only amplifies the challenges of detecting or interacting with extraterrestrial intelligence. In conclusion, the sheer scale of the universe creates a fundamental barrier to the detection and interaction of intelligent life. Even if life is common, intelligent civilizations may be isolated by astronomical distances, temporal misalignment, environmental hazards, and the rarity of habitable planets. Feynman's perspective emphasizes that the vastness of space, while awe-inspiring, can deceive us into overestimating the likelihood of contact. The universe may be enormous, but intelligent life remains extraordinarily rare, scattered and difficult to detect across the cosmic expanse. Richard Feynman was renowned for his clarity, insight, and emphasis on scientific humility. When considering the question of intelligent life, Feynman urged caution against overestimating our own significance or assuming that intelligence is a universal outcome of evolution, despite our technological achievements and understanding of the cosmos. We must recognize that life on Earth, and especially intelligent life, is extraordinarily rare and contingent. This perspective is the foundation of the seventh keynote, embracing humility in our assumptions about intelligent life. One of the core lessons from Feynman is that our experience is not necessarily typical. Humans naturally project their own experiences and observations onto the broader universe. We see ourselves as the products of evolution, capable of reasoning, abstract thought, and technological innovation. And it is tempting to assume that intelligence is a common or inevitable feature of life. However, the fossil record tells a different story. For billions of years, life on Earth consisted entirely of single-celled organisms. Multicellular life, let alone intelligence, is a tiny fraction of life's evolutionary history. Our own existence is the result of an extraordinary alignment of chance events, environmental conditions, and evolutionary pressures, an alignment that may be exceedingly rare elsewhere. Feynman's reminder of humility also stems from the limitations of scientific knowledge. While astrobiology, astronomy, and evolutionary biology provide insights into the conditions for life, the probability of intelligence emerging is still highly uncertain. We know life requires specific environmental factors, chemical condition, cess, and sufficient time to evolve complexity. Beyond that, predicting the likelihood of intelligence involves immense uncertainty. Any assumptions we make based solely on Earth's experience risk overgeneralization. We cannot assume that intelligent life is a natural endpoint of evolution. The universe may be filled with life that never progresses beyond microbial simplicity. Another aspect of humility lies in the recognition of contingency and randomness in evolution. Evolution is not a linear or predetermined process. It is shaped by random mutations, environmental pressures, and historical accidents. Extinctions, climate shifts, asteroid impacts, and countless other stochastic events have repeatedly altered the course of life on Earth. Intelligence is not a guaranteed outcome, but a rare possibility that emerged under highly specific conditions. Feynman's insight emphasizes that our own intelligence is the product of luck as much as of evolutionary adaptation, and assuming it to be inevitable elsewhere ignores the role of chance. Humility is also necessary when considering the limitations imposed by the universe's scale and structure. Even if other intelligent civilizations exist, the vast distances, temporal misalignments, and environmental hazards of space make contact or detection extraordinarily unlikely. From our perspective, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but it is also not a guarantee that intelligence is common. Feynman's view encourages us to acknowledge the universe's enormity and the limitations of our observational perspective. What appears empty or barren from Earth may be full of life, but we cannot assume that intelligent life is widespread or easily reachable. Furthermore, humility encourages a cautious approach to extrapolation. Many popular theories, like the Drake equation, attempt to estimate the number of civilizations in our galaxy, but they rely on speculative parameters, such as the probability of intelligence evolving or civilization surviving long enough to communicate. Feynman would remind us that these estimates are only as reliable as the assumptions behind them. Overconfidence in our models risks misunderstanding the universe and overestimating the prevalence of intelligent life. The lesson is not pessimism, but careful consideration of uncertainties and probabilities. Embracing humility also fosters scientific curiosity and open-mindedness. Recognizing the rarity and fragility of intelligence motivates careful exploration, observation, and experimentation rather than assumptions. Feynman consistently emphasized questioning, testing, and accepting what evidence shows, even if it challenges preconceived notions. In the context of intelligent life, this mindset encourages us to explore the universe systematically, to search for life without